Jungkook opens a mysterious deleted message from Jimin. What he discovers unravels secrets no one was prepared to face. Emotionally devastating. "Don't open it, Jungkook, please. For the love of God, don't." But it was too late. The room was silent, except for the soft ping of Jungkook's phone unlocking. His thumb hovered over the notification for barely a second before instinct, or something darker, forced it open. The air was thick, like before a storm, the quiet so loud it pressed against his eardrums. In front of him, the recovered message glowed with a chilling finality. "If anything happens to me, it's not an accident. And don't trust him, not even if he cries." The message was sent by Jimin, and it was dated 5 hours before he disappeared. A low buzzing started in Jungkook's ears. His stomach turned with a lurch. He reread the message. Once, twice, then again, as if the words might rearrange into something less horrifying. But they didn't. They stayed exactly the same, accusatory, terrified, and eerily prophetic. He hadn't cried when Jimin vanished. None of them had. Not really. They'd all assumed he needed space. That he'd taken one of his famous escapes. Maybe to Jeju, maybe to Tokyo. He always came back before. But this time, he didn't. And now, here it was. A message he should never have seen. One that Jimin had deleted, erased from the chat before it could reach Jungkook's screen. But CloudSync didn't lie, and neither did archive data when you knew where to look. Yoongi stood frozen in the corner, a cigarette burning out between his fingers, the ash curling dangerously close to his skin. "Who's him?" he asked, voice hoarse. Jungkook didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind had already started spiraling, breaking down every interaction from the past 6 months. Jimin had been paranoid, skipping meals, locking his studio. He'd stopped responding to Taehyung's memes. He'd even asked Jungkook once, in a whisper like a broken prayer, "Do you ever feel like someone's watching us?" Back then, Jungkook had laughed. He wasn't laughing now. He opened the chat again. There was no profile picture, no last seen. Just that single recovered message floating like a ghost in their history. He tried calling Jimin again. Straight to voicemail. His throat tightened. And then something worse happened. His phone vibrated new message. Same thread. Jungkook's blood turned to ice. The chat was supposed to be dead. Jimin's number wasn't even active anymore. It had been disconnected 2 weeks ago. But the screen didn't care. "You shouldn't have opened it." That was all it said. A scream lodged itself in Jungkook's chest but never came out. Yoongi grabbed his phone, eyes darting. "This has to be a prank. Someone hacked his number. It's not him. It can't be him." But Jungkook was no longer listening. He was remembering something. A night 2 weeks before Jimin vanished, when he'd walked into Jimin's studio and found the vocalist frantically deleting voice memos, wiping files, whispering, "He can't hear them. He can't hear them." Who was he? And what did he know that Jimin was so desperate to destroy? There were answers, Jungkook knew. Buried beneath fear, secrets, and the suffocating guilt that gnawed at his insides. He wasn't innocent either. He had ignored the signs. He'd chosen not to see Jimin breaking. He stared at the message again, fingers trembling. Don't trust him. There was only one way forward now. He had to go back to the last place anyone had seen Jimin alive. The studio on the 3rd floor. The one that still smelled like jasmine and charcoal. The one with the broken mirror no one had dared to fix. And this time, he wouldn't leave without answers. "Did you hear that?" Jungkook's voice was barely a whisper, but it cut through the thick silence like a blade. Yoongi tilted his head, eyes narrowing as he listened. There it was, faint but unmistakable. A thump, then another. Not rhythmic like footsteps, erratic, almost like something, or someone, struggling to breathe behind the wall. They were standing outside Studio 3F, Jimin's old haven. The hallway lights flickered overhead, casting brief, stuttering shadows across Yoongi's face, making his normally calm features twitch with unease. "Third floor's been locked since..." Yoongi started, but the words died in his throat. Since he disappeared, Jungkook finished for him. He pushed the key into the lock. It had taken him an hour to convince security to give it to him, pulled every string, called in every favor. Everyone thought he was grieving, spiraling. Maybe he was. But something inside him, some raw, irrational fire, told him this wasn't just grief. It was unfinished. Someone wanted it to stay unfinished. The door creaked open. It was freezing inside. Not just cold, unnatural. Like walking into a memory that never forgave you. The studio hadn't changed. Jimin's scent still lingered. Jasmine, bergamot, a hint of sandalwood. The blinds were half open, and outside, Seoul blinked like a sleeping beast. The lights from the city spilled into the room, catching the edge of the large, floor-length mirror in the corner. The mirror was shattered, cracks spiderwebbed through the glass, warping their reflections into something unrecognizable. Jungkook stepped forward, his breath fogging the air. "This is where he started unraveling," Yoongi muttered. "He stopped letting anyone in. I saw him here once talking to himself. Or someone invisible. I didn't say anything, He swallowed, looking away. I was scared of what I saw in his eyes." Jungkook scanned the room. His fingers brushed over the desk, dusty, undisturbed, except for the smallest thing. A black flash drive, half hidden beneath an old notepad. He picked it up. "No," Yoongi said sharply. "Don't plug that in. You have no idea what's on it." "That's exactly why I have to." Jungkook sat at the desk, hands steady despite the storm rising in his chest. He plugged the drive into his laptop. The screen blinked. One folder appeared. "Listen if I'm gone." He clicked. A single audio file began to play. The voice was unmistakable. "Jimin's. If you're hearing this, it means I'm not safe anymore. Maybe I'm already gone. I've seen things I wasn't supposed to see. He's been watching us, all of us. But he's obsessed with you, Jungkook. I tried to protect you, but I think I've only made it worse." There was a long pause, then static, and a sound that chilled both of them, sobbing, raw, terrified. "Don't let him fool you. He's in our circle, closer than you think. He knows how to lie, how to cry on cue, how to make you feel like he loves you." The recording ended in a blood-curdling scream. Yoongi backed away from the laptop like it was radioactive. No, this is too much. This isn't real. This is a fucking prank. Jimin wouldn't." "He would," Jungkook said quietly. "If he thought I was in danger, he absolutely would." A door slammed in the hallway. Both of them jumped. Someone was here. Jungkook grabbed the flash drive and stuffed it into his jacket. They slipped out of the studio just in time to see a figure disappear down the far end of the corridor. Tall, hooded, moving too fast to be just curious. They chased him down the stairs. But by the time they reached the lobby, the man was gone. Yoongi doubled over, panting. "You think that was him?" Jungkook didn't answer. His mind was spinning. The scream from the recording still echoed in his head. But more than that, Jimin's warning. "He's in our circle." And Jimin had looked him in the eye the week before he vanished, and said something Jungkook had almost forgotten until now. "If you ever doubt me, just remember, people can fake tears, but they can't fake fear." He pulled out his phone. He had to talk to the others. All of them. Tae, Namjoon, Jin, Hobi. One of them had to know something. He texted the group chat. "Emergency. Meet at my place." No excuses. Within seconds, blue checks lit up the screen, seen by all. No replies. And yet, someone responded privately. A message from Hobi. "What did you find?" No greeting. No emojis. Not like him. Jungkook stared at the message, his pulse quickening. And then something else came through an image. It was a photo, taken seconds ago, of Jungkook and Yoongi, standing inside studio. TSFF, from inside the mirror. "That's not possible," Jungkook whispered, his voice strangled with disbelief as his thumb hovered over the photo Hobi had just sent. "How could he take this?" Yoongi grabbed the phone from his hand, his knuckles whitening. "This photo." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The timestamp was unmistakable. The angle, impossible. The photo had been taken from inside the mirror. Jungkook. Yoongi's voice was shaking now, a rare and terrifying sound. "You and I were the only ones in that room. The door never opened. The mirror, it's shattered. There's no way a reflection like this even exists." Jungkook stared at the image again. The composition was perfect, disturbingly so. His and Yoongi's faces caught mid-expression, distorted by panic, mid-sprint, out the door. But in the background, behind the fragments of glass, was something else. A figure, barely visible, watching. Not from the room. From inside the mirror, Jungkook's hand started to tremble. "Is that Jimin?" "No. Yoongi said too quickly. No, it's not. That's not his shape. That's someone else. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Hobie. No text this time, just an audio clip. Jungkook hesitated, every instinct in him screaming not to play it, but he tapped anyway. Jimin's voice again, but distorted. Lower. More. Corrupted. Don't you see? It rasped. He lives behind the glass. He sees everything. The more you remember, the closer he gets. Don't look at your reflection too long, Kook. He loves your face. The clip cut to static. Jungkook stood frozen, something thick and metallic rising in his throat. A wave of nausea gripped his stomach. What the hell is happening? He muttered. Yoongi backed up, like distance could protect him. We're being hunted, not physically, mentally, emotionally. It's inside the tech, the mirrors, the screens. A soft knock echoed through Jungkook's apartment door. Both of them jumped. Yoongi's hand went instinctively to his back pocket. He always carried something sharp, for reasons no one ever questioned. Jungkook walked slowly to the door, peeked through the peephole. Taehyung. He opened it immediately. Thank God, But Taehyung didn't speak. His eyes were wide. Too wide. Like he'd seen something no human should ever see. You read it, he said. You opened Jimin's message. Jungkook blinked. How do you know that? Taehyung walked in like a man moving underwater. Because I got one too. 2 days ago. Same timestamp. It disappeared before I could read it. Then, something started following me. In my sleep. In my mirror. In my phone. It speaks in my voice, Kook. My voice. Yoongi cursed under his breath. We need Namjoon! He'll know what to do! Taehyung's lips twisted into something like a laugh, but bitter, hollow. Namjoon's not coming. What? He's gone. His phone's off. His apartment's been locked from the inside for 3 days. I went there. I broke in. And what I found? His voice cracked. There were photos of all of us, lined up on his wall, connected by red thread. Notes, dates. It looked like an obsession, but worse. Like he was trying to protect us, or warn us. I don't know. Yoongi paced, rubbing his temples. Okay, so let's say something is watching us, through the mirrors, the screens, whatever. Jimin found out. Tried to warn us, and something erased him. Now, it's after us. After you, Taehyung corrected, looking straight at Jungkook. You're the link. The messages were meant for you. Jungkook didn't speak. His chest felt like it was caving in. Taehyung sat down on the couch, hands buried in his thick coat, face pale. There's more. At Jimin's apartment I went there too. There's a locked box under his bed. I took it. He pulled out a small dented black case and placed it on the coffee table. Jungkook reached for it, but Taehyung slapped his hand. Don't open it unless you're ready to see everything. Jimin wrote something on the inside. He flipped the lid open slowly. Inside were 3 items. A disposable camera, a flash drive, and a blood-stained post-it note. Jungkook leaned in. The note read, burn the camera. Never plug in the drive. Only see if you're ready to be seen back. Yoongi let out a sharp laugh, equal parts panic and disbelief. What the actual fuck does that mean? Jungkook looked at the camera. It was old, analog, dusty, but not broken. He picked it up gently and saw a label etched on the bottom. Roll 1, BTS Tokyo Hotel. Deck 2022. Jungkook froze. That night, he whispered. We were in Tokyo, celebrating Namjoon's birthday. Jimin disappeared for 2 hours and said he was clearing his head. He came back shaking. We thought he was just drunk. Taehyung looked away. I think that's when it started. Yoongi stepped back, shaking his head. Okay, this is too far. We're chasing shadows. Deleted messages. Paranoia. This could all be a psychotic break. Mass hysteria. Jungkook turned to him. His eyes were sharp, controlled. Then why are you scared, Hyung? Why did you carry a knife into my apartment? Jeon didn't answer. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then again, then blackout. All 3 of them froze. The air grew heavier, thick with static, like the room itself had become electrified. Then from the hallway mirror came the sound of breathing. Slow, deliberate, hungry. Taehyung stepped back, voice breaking. He's here. Jungkook turned, eyes wide, heart hammering, and in the mirror, just for a second, he saw him. A figure in their clothes, their face, but wrong. The smile was too wide, the eyes black, endless, like static given form. It reached out toward the glass, fingertips brushing the inside. Jungkook grabbed the camera and the flash drive. We need answers. Taehyung yelled, No! You saw the note! I don't care anymore, Jungkook snapped. I'm tired of being afraid of the questions. We finished this. Now. He turned toward his laptop, and the mirror behind him began to crack again. The mirror behind Jungkook splintered with a high-pitched shriek that didn't sound like breaking glass. It sounded alive, like something screaming in pain or rage, or both. The crack carved a jagged line from top to bottom, as if something inside was trying to claw its way out. Taehyung stumbled back, knocking over the lamp, sending the room into deeper shadow. Jungkook stood frozen with the flash drive in one hand and the disposable camera in the other, heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. Put it down, Taehyung said, voice trembling. I swear to God, Kook, don't plug in that drive. That's what it wants. Yoongi snatched the drive from Jungkook's hand and slammed it onto the table. What the hell do you think you're doing? He hissed. You saw the warning. You heard the audio. You felt that thing in the mirror breathing down your spine, and you still think this is a good idea? Jungkook's voice was low, dangerous. I don't care what it wants. I care about what Jimin wanted me to see. He left this for a reason. If he's gone, if he's really gone, I owe him this. Yoongi leaned in close, eyes wild. And what if he didn't leave it? What if he left it behind while running for his life? The silence that followed was oppressive. Taehyung collapsed onto the couch, face in his hands. We don't even know what's real anymore. I haven't slept in days. Every time I close my eyes, I see myself, but not myself. It's like my reflection has a life of its own. It smiles when I'm crying. It whispers things. Sometimes it watches me longer than it should. It's like something is wearing me from the inside out. Jungkook finally sat down, setting the camera and flash drive side by side. His fingers brushed the blood-stained note again. See only if you're ready to be seen back. He didn't know what that meant exactly, but it didn't feel metaphorical. Yoongi was pacing again. You think this is some paranormal shit? Because that's the only conclusion that fits anymore. Something crossed over. Something that shouldn't exist. And Jimin, he got too close. Or too inside, Taehyung muttered. Maybe it's not out there. Maybe it's in us now. The mirror groaned again. Not shattering this time. Breathing. Like a lung. Like a throat clearing before it speaks. And then a voice, Jimin's voice, but wrong, twisted, flayed of warmth, spoke from the crack. Which one of you lied? Jungkook sprang to his feet. No, that's not real. But it was. The voice echoed from the mirror again. Louder this time, more accusatory. One of you lied. One of you watched him fall and said nothing. Taehyung's head shot up. His eyes locked with Jungkook's. No, Jungkook said instantly, backing away. Don't look at me like that. I didn't. You hesitated, Taehyung whispered. That night, in Tokyo, when he came back, you looked him in the eye. He tried to tell you something, and you walked away. Jungkook's voice broke. I didn't know what he was going through. He wouldn't talk to me anymore. Yoongi slammed his fist on the table. He tried. We all brushed him off. We called him dramatic, overworked. You think you're the only one with guilt? He came to me 3 days before he vanished and begged me to check on Namjoon. He said Namjoon wasn't himself anymore. I told him to sleep it off. Silence fell again, heavy and sharp. The mirror pulsed, then cracked further. The figure inside grew clearer. Not Jimin. Not any of them. A humanoid shape, made of static and shadows. Its mouth a black void stretched into a grin that didn't move. It didn't blink. It just watched. And it was getting closer. The room darkened further as the lights flickered out completely. The only illumination came from the screen of Jungkook's laptop. He moved before he could think. Plugged in the drive. Taehyung screamed, lunging forward, trying to stop him, but it was too late. The screen flashed. Files appeared. One by one. All named after the members. JK. Confession. .way. .u. V. Video. Feed. .mp4. SG. Memory. log.txt, JM, final, entry, M4, RM, unknown.mu.r. Wait, what the hell is this? Yoongi muttered, leaning in. Jungkook clicked on his file first. A single audio recording. His own voice, recorded in a whisper. I saw it. That night, in the hallway. I saw something follow Jimin into the bathroom, but I didn't say anything. I thought I was losing my mind. I was scared. I left him alone. Jungkook felt like the floor had vanished beneath him. I never recorded that, he breathed. Taehyung was staring at the laptop like it had grown teeth. These aren't files. They're memories. It's in our heads. It knows. It's been recording us. Yoongi opened his file next. Text filled the screen. Min Yoongi. Observation 12. Subject still shows signs of denial. Refuses to acknowledge visual hallucinations. Emotionally detached. Highly vulnerable. Potential breach imminent. Yoongi recoiled from the screen like it had struck him. Who wrote this? Jungkook looked at him. Not who. What? They turned to Taehyung's file. A video feed. The timestamp was from that night. Tokyo. December 2022. Hotel hallway camera. It showed Jimin walking quickly, glancing behind him, clearly terrified. A second figure appeared behind him a moment later. Not visible in full, just a flicker, an outline, but unmistakably present. Then Jimin stopped, turned, and spoke to someone who wasn't there. The audio was barely audible, but the AI in the laptop enhanced it automatically. You promised you'd leave them alone. Why are you still here? Jungkook's fingers hovered over the laptop port. The flash drive clutched like a loaded gun between his fingertips. Outside, the storm that had been creeping over Seoul had finally broken. Rain lashed against the windows like fingernails. The wind howled low and hungry. And somewhere distant, maybe only in their minds, a voice whispered something in Jimin's tone, but warped. Wrong. Taehyung slapped the laptop shut. You're not doing this. Don't. Jungkook warned, rising, his voice sharper than even he intended. I'm serious, Taehyung snapped. That drive is cursed. He said it himself. Never plug it in. What if that's how it spreads? What if the thing that took Jimin lives inside that file? Then I want to meet it. Jungkook's voice cracked, emotion erupting like lava under his calm. I want to look it in the fucking eyes and ask why it took him. Why it's toying with us. Why it's hiding behind his face. Yoongi moved toward them slowly, one hand held out like he was taming a wild animal. Let's all just take a second. No. Jungkook's fists clenched. We keep taking seconds. We keep hesitating. That thing, it doesn't sleep. It doesn't rest. But it waits. And every second we stall, it gets closer. You saw the message. It knows my name. Taehyung's eyes burned. And what if it wants you to open it? What if that's the trap? Jungkook stepped toward him, their faces inches apart now, fury simmering just below the surface. Then I'll fall into it, with my eyes wide open. The tension in the room snapped like a rubber band. Yoongi slammed his hand against the table. The sound cutting through the air like a gunshot. Enough. Both of you. You're acting like idiots. Jimin died if he's even dead because we didn't listen. You think screaming at each other's gonna fix that? Silence followed. Thunder growled over the city, and then something broke the quiet. A laugh. Slow, gentle, imitating, mocking. It echoed from the bathroom mirror. All three of them turned. The sound stopped. Jungkook didn't wait. He stormed into the bathroom and flipped the light. The fluorescent bulb blinked, then caught. The mirror fogged as though someone had just breathed on it. But the room was cold, freezing even. He stepped closer. On the glass, letters began to form. Not scratched, not written, but manifested, as though a finger of steam was spelling them from the other side. Open it. Jungkook's mouth went dry. You want me to, don't you? The letters dripped, fading. He returned to the living room and threw the flash drive onto the table. Fine. You won't help? I'll do it myself. Yoongi stood still, arms crossed. If you do this, there's no going back. I crossed that line the second I read Jimin's message, Jungkook said quietly. I just didn't know it yet. Taehyung turned away, hand gripping the back of his neck, fingers pressing into skin like he was trying to wake himself from a nightmare. At least let me pray first. Jungkook opened the laptop. He plugged in the drive. Nothing exploded. No lights flickered. The world didn't collapse. Just one folder. Faces. 2023. He opened it. A collection of files appeared: images, documents, videos, dozens, hundreds. He clicked the first video. The screen turned black for a moment, then began to play. It was a hidden camera video. Low resolution. Shaky. It showed Jimin in the Tokyo hotel, standing in front of the mirror. He was talking to himself. No talking to someone in the mirror. "Why me?" Jimin's voice. "Why do you keep following me?" The reflection didn't answer, but its mouth moved. Not in sync, delayed, like a lagging copy of Jimin's own movements. Then it smiled. Too wide. Too inhuman. Jungkook stopped the video. His breath caught. Another file. A photo. He opened it. It was a still of him, Jungkook, sleeping, taken from inside his room. He gasped and recoiled. "No, no, I lock my doors, my curtains, His voice broke. Yoongi stepped closer, pale. "What else is in there?" Jungkook scrolled down. One more file caught his eye, larger than the rest. Him mauve. Taehyung gripped the table. Don't play that one. I don't want to see him." But Jungkook already had. The video opened on black, then a static buzz. Then, Namjoon. He was crying. "Whoever finds this," he whispered, "it's not your fault. It started with me. The mirror in the hotel, he talked to me first. I thought it was a dream. He knew things. He said he could keep us together. He lied." Namjoon looked around, paranoid. "I think I let him in. I thought he was me. A better me. That's how he tricked me. A pause. I don't know who's still real anymore. I don't even trust myself." Then, his voice lowered to a trembling whisper. "If you see me again, ask me what Jimin's last words were. If I get them wrong, run." The video cut. The room was silent. Taehyung whispered, "You think Namjoon's still alive?" "I don't know," Jungkook said, "but I'm going to find out." Yoongi looked at him. Really looked at him. This kid who had started as the youngest, the softest, the easiest to smile, and saw something different. Now, sharp, haunted. "You know," Yoongi said quietly, "he always believed in you, Jimin, even when he didn't believe in himself." Jungkook swallowed hard, blinking back the heat behind his eyes. "Then I'll make sure he didn't die for nothing." Lightning flashed, and from somewhere deep within the drive, unseen by all of them, another file began to unzip itself. Echo, record, 0. The screen glitched, and the voice that whispered through the speakers this time was Jungkook's. But it wasn't from any recording he'd made, and it was saying something he had never, ever said. "Turn it off," Taehyung breathed, staring at the screen like it might grow teeth. "Turn it off, Jungkook. That's not you. That's not your voice." But Jungkook didn't move. The voice playing through the laptop speakers was his exact tone, cadence, every breath, but distorted slightly, as though recorded inside a box underwater. And what it was saying made the blood in his veins run cold. "I let him in. I wanted to see what would happen. He promised me the truth. He promised me I wouldn't be alone anymore." The voice cracked, choked, then said, "I watched Jimin D." Yoongi swore under his breath. "That's not possible. That's not real. It's synthetic, deepfake. Whatever this is, it's designed to break you." Jungkook finally shut the laptop, cutting off the voice mid-sentence. The silence that followed was even more deafening than the static had been. He stood motionless, fists clenched so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. "I never said those words," he muttered. "I never watched Jimin die." Taehyung was trembling now, jaw clenched, eyes darting toward every mirror in the apartment like they were bombs waiting to detonate. "It's mimicking us, studying us. It's collecting our voices, our memories, and using them against us. You realize what this means, right?" Jungkook didn't respond. He was remembering something, a dream he had weeks ago. Jimin standing at the foot of his bed, silent, soaked in rain, mouth moving soundlessly while his reflection in the window smiled behind him. He had woken up screaming, but told no one. Taehyung leaned in closer now, voice dropping. "What if it's not just mimicking us? What if it's replacing us? Yoongi frowned. Replacing? Taehyung nodded. Think about it. Namjoon hasn't been seen in days, but he left that video. What if the Namjoon we find isn't the one we knew? What if it's like a skin, a mask, something wearing him? You sound insane, Yoongi said, but it was half-hearted. Even he didn't believe his own words anymore. Jungkook turned, voice low. So what do we do? Silence. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair, pacing. We find Namjoon, not just because he might be in danger, but because he might be the danger. We need to know if what we saw on that drive was really him or something else. I agree, Jungkook said. But we go in prepared. No mirrors, no phones, no reflective surfaces. If this thing watches through our own eyes, then we take that away. Yoongi raised an eyebrow. How the hell are we supposed to find him without tech? Jungkook turned toward the window, the storm still raging behind him. We go old school. We ask people. We trace his last known location. Taehyung suddenly stopped pacing, eyes wide. Wait, I know where he might be. Jungkook and Yoongi both turned. There's a place he used to go when he needed to disconnect, Taehyung said. A retreat house, outside Seoul, off-grid, no cell service, no cameras. I only know about it because I followed him there once. I thought he was cheating on someone. But he was alone, just sitting, staring at a blank wall, whispering to himself. Jungkook nodded. Then that's where we go. Yoongi sighed, rubbing his face. And if we find him? Jungkook didn't hesitate. We ask him what Jimin's last words were. The three of them packed quickly hoods, gloves, knives, salt, anything they remembered from old horror stories that might make them feel protected. They didn't say goodbye to anyone. They didn't leave notes. They didn't even look into mirrors on their way out. The ride was silent for the first hour. No music, no talking. Just the sound of tires on wet asphalt, and the quiet hum of fear breathing in the back of all their throats. It was Yoongi who finally broke the silence. I used to think Jimin was paranoid, he said, like clinically. We all brushed it off. But do you remember the night he made us all cover the mirrors in the dorm? Said we'd wake up wrong if we didn't? I remember, Taehyung said, his voice tight. I didn't sleep at all that night. I took the cover off mine, Yoongi muttered. Thought he was being dramatic. When I woke up the next morning, my reflection didn't move. Jungkook's hands tightened around the wheel. Why didn't you say anything? Because it moved a second later, like nothing happened. I thought it was just a dream. They reached the retreat house just before dawn. It stood on the edge of a pine forest, the trees black silhouettes against the pale sky. The building was old, stone, wood, and shadows. The windows were all boarded up, but a faint light flickered inside. They approached slowly. Yoongi led the way, knife in one hand, flashlight in the other. The door wasn't locked. Inside, the air smelled of burnt sage, damp wood, and something sweeter, almost like blood. The walls were covered in paper. Scribbled words, fragments of thoughts, names, their names. And there, sitting in the middle of the room, back to them, was Namjoon. Jungkook stopped breathing. Namjoon? He called softly. No response. Taehyung stepped closer. Hyung? Namjoon turned around slowly. He looked normal, pale, tired, but normal. To normal. Jungkook's heart pounded. What were Jimin's last words? Namjoon blinked, then smiled. They were, "Don't trust the dark." Jungkook froze. That wasn't right. Jimin's real last words from the message were, "Don't trust him, not even if he cries." Taehyung whispered, "That's not him." Namjoon stood slowly. "Why are you afraid?" he asked. "It's just me. I missed you." Yoongi stepped back. "Prove it." Namjoon tilted his head. "Prove what?" "Prove you're not wearing his skin," Yoongi said, voice shaking. Namjoon smiled wider. Then, slowly, too slowly, he began to peel something from his neck, and the skin beneath wasn't human. It shimmered black, liquid, reflecting their own horrified faces back at them. Jungkook grabbed Taehyung and pulled him toward the door. "Run!" Yeonj didn't move. He was staring, transfixed. "Yoongi!" Jungkook screamed. But it was too late. Namjoon's voice echoed behind them as they fled. No longer pretending to be human. You already let me in. The forest swallowed them. Jungkook and Taehyung sprinted through branches that clawed at their faces, the cold air burning their lungs, the world around them blurring with speed and panic. Behind them, Namjoon, or whatever was inside, Namjoon didn't follow with footsteps. It didn't run. It drifted. A soundless, creeping presence they could feel crawling up their spines, moving just outside their field of vision. Yoongi had screamed once, then gone silent. Jungkook wanted to go back, but Taehyung was dragging him forward by the sleeve, shouting through gritted teeth. "Don't be a hero! You saw what that thing was! It isn't Namjoon anymore!" "Then what was it?" Jungkook choked, his voice cracking under the weight of it. "What the fuck was that?" Taehyung didn't answer. Couldn't. The trees were thinning. The gravel of the roadside appeared under their shoes, and in the distance, salvation, a rest stop, lights flickering dimly under the gray pre-dawn sky. They burst into the building, shoving past a confused old man mopping the floor, who flinched and shouted something in Korean as the two of them collapsed against the wall, soaked in sweat and rain. Jungkook doubled over, dry heaving into his hands. Taehyung was shaking uncontrollably. "I saw his eyes," he whispered. "I saw inside. It wasn't empty. It was full. Like a mirror filled with every version of him that ever existed. Laughing. Bleeding. Some of them were screaming." Jungkook lifted his head, his hair plastered to his forehead. "Why did it let us go?" Taehyung looked at him like the question hurt. "Because it wanted you to see." They sat there in silence, the old man eyeing them suspiciously from behind the counter, muttering prayers under his breath as he watched them out of the corner of his eye. Jungkook pulled out his phone and stared at the black screen. He didn't dare turn it on. "I left Yoongi," he whispered. "I told him to run, and I ran first." "You didn't leave him," Taehyung said, quieter than before. "He made a choice." "No, I left him." Jungkook's voice rose, cracking at the edges now. "And I'm starting to think everyone I don't save dies screaming." Taehyung flinched at that, but didn't argue. Instead, he said, "You think it's over, don't you?" Jungkook looked up. "Isn't it?" Taehyung leaned in. "It knew our question. What were Jimin's last words? That was supposed to be the safety check. The trap. And it answered wrong, but just slightly wrong. Close enough to cause doubt. It wasn't trying to trick us. It was testing us. Saying if we'd hesitate." Jungkook stared at him. Taehyung added, "It could have killed us, ripped us open. It didn't. That means it's not finished yet." Silence. The automatic door slid open behind them. They both jumped, spinning, fists clenched, but it was just a woman with a stroller, blinking at them before turning back to her phone. Everything looked so normal here. Vending machines, flickering soda ads, a family in the corner half asleep over their luggage. No one screaming, no one bleeding, and that made it worse. Jungkook finally stood, pacing in a tight circle. "We need to go back for Yoongi. We don't even know if he's still—" "We go back," Jungkook snapped, his voice suddenly edged with something harder than fear, determination maybe, or desperation. "I don't care if he's possessed, dead, or turned into whatever the hell that thing is. I won't lose another one of you." Taehyung sighed, rubbing his temples. "You think you can just storm back in there with a flashlight and a cross and get answers? We're way past that. You saw what I saw. It peels people. It wears them." Jungkook stared at his hands. "Then we peel it back." Taehyung barked a bitter laugh. "You say that like we know how." Jungkook turned to him. "We go deeper. We dig. Someone made this thing. Or invited it. Jimin found something. The camera, the drive, the Tokyo hotel. This didn't start with us. There has to be a route. And you want to go all the way down the rabbit hole. We're already falling. Might as well look around on the way." Taehyung watched him for a long moment. Then finally, nodded. Just once. When they left the rest stop, the sun was trying to rise, but the sky remained dark, as if the world itself was hesitating. They drove in silence until they reached the edge of Seoul. Jungkook pulled into an underground parking lot near an internet cafe. Taehyung looked at him, confused. "Here?" "I need access," Jungkook muttered. "Without trackers. Without eyes." They entered the building, descending into the hum of neon lights, rows of dusty computer stations glowing in dim, flickering pulses. No cameras, no facial scans, just anonymity. Jungkook logged in and started digging, hotel records, security footage, archived forums. The name of the Tokyo hotel from the camera came up again and again in conspiracy threads, in rumors, in deleted posts from former staff. It had been shut down 6 months ago. Under mysterious circumstances, he found a thread on a dark forum, titled simply, "Don't Look Too Long." The poster claimed to be a former cleaner at the Tokyo hotel. She described mirrors that stayed fogged even when wiped, guests who claimed their reflections smiled when they didn't, children who disappeared from locked rooms. One line stood out. There was one mirror in room 903 that was covered in warnings. Blood, nail scratches, tape, black paint. When the new owners removed it, everything went wrong. Jungkook leaned back in the chair. Room 903. Taehyung sat beside him. That's the room Jimin stayed in. He mentioned it in one of his old vlogs. I thought it was just another hotel suite. No, Jungkook said quietly. It was the start. His phone vibrated. He'd forgotten he even brought it. He pulled it out. The screen cracked, flickering. One new message. From an unknown number. Just 2 words. He's awake. Taehyung read over his shoulder. Yoongi? Another message came in. This time, a photo. It was Yoongi standing in the retreat house, smiling wide. But his eyes, they were pitch black. And in the background, written across the wall in something dark and dripping, were the words, "Now we wear you." Taehyung staggered back from the screen like it had physically struck him. No, that's not real. That's edited. That's not Yoongi. Jungkook didn't answer. His fingers hovered over the phone screen as he zoomed in on the photo. The eyes were undeniable, pure obsidian. Not black like absence, but like reflection. They didn't just not belong to Yoongi. They didn't belong to anything human. But it was the smile that broke him. It was Yoongi's smile. Perfectly familiar, perfectly ordinary, except that it was being worn like a costume. Taehyung gripped the back of the cracked leather chair in the internet cafe, his voice barely above a whisper. Do you feel it? Jungkook glanced at him. That thing, that pressure behind your eyes, like something's watching you from inside. Jungkook closed his eyes for a second, and there it was. A sensation he'd been ignoring all day. Not dread, not fear. But something else, like his thoughts were no longer private, like his memories were rooms someone else was walking through with muddy shoes, looking at everything, touching everything, rearranging everything. He shoved the phone back into his pocket and stood abruptly. We go to room 903. Taehyung's head snapped up. In Tokyo? Jungkook nodded. We've been running from the mouth of the beast. It's time we walk into its stomach. Jimin found something in that room. The camera. The voice. It. And what if that's what it wants? Then it gets what it wants. Taehyung's jaw clenched. Do you even hear yourself anymore? Jungkook turned to him, eyes sharp, unwavering. Yes, and I trust myself more than I trust anyone right now. There was silence between them. Then Taehyung exhaled. We'll need fake names, passports, disguises. Jungkook gave him a ghost of a smile. You still have connections? I have people, Taehyung said darkly. We'll fly tomorrow night. I can get us out of Korea quiet. But even as they left the cafe, even as they passed through alleys and dark streets and faces that did not know them, the tension in the air remained. No matter how far they ran, it ran faster. They could feel it. Always a step ahead. Always curling behind their ears. Always whispering in voices they almost trusted. Back at Jungkook's apartment, they locked the windows, sealed the mirrors, and slept in shifts. But neither of them really slept. At 3:14 a.m., Jungkook woke with a start. The lights were off. The apartment was silent. Too silent. He rose slowly, heart pounding, and moved toward the living room. And stopped. Taehyung was sitting on the floor in front of the covered mirror, staring at it. The cloth was gone. Taehyung? Jungkook whispered. No response. He crept closer. The mirror reflected Taehyung's back perfectly. Motionless. But something was off. Taehyung's reflection was smiling. Jungkook grabbed him by the shoulders and yanked him away hard. What the fuck are you doing? Taehyung gasped, as if emerging from underwater. His pupils dilated, sweat pouring from his forehead. I wasn't looking. I didn't mean to. It called to me. Jungkook's voice was sharp. What did it say? Taehyung's eyes darted to the covered glass. It said, It already knows what you'll choose. They stood there, shaking, for minutes. The next night, they flew. No checked baggage, no digital footprints, just 2 fake identities, 1 Tokyo-bound flight, and hearts that beat like they knew this might be the final chapter. Jungkook didn't speak during the flight. Not because he didn't want to, but because he was afraid of what voice might come out. When they landed, the city was drowning in neon and rain. Tokyo pulsed with indifference. The hotel had been closed, boarded, condemned after what authorities had called a gas leak. Locals didn't speak of it. Taxis wouldn't drive near it. The only people who knew about room 903 were dead, missing, or changed. They broke in at midnight, flashlights in hand, salt in their pockets. Jimin's camera slung around Jungkook's neck like a curse. The lobby was rotting. Mold clung to the walls. Dust coated the floors in a perfect, undisturbed layer. They didn't speak. Elevator didn't work. Stairs only. Nine floors. Each one felt like a descent deeper into something they couldn't name. At the 9th floor landing, the hallway greeted them like a wound cold. Endless. Lined with broken lights and doors like broken teeth. Room 903 stood at the very end. Its number plate was scratched out. The door was sealed with red wax. Jungkook touched the doorknob. It burned. He looked at Taehyung. They didn't say it aloud. They broke the seal and entered. The room inside was dark, windowless, but it wasn't empty. In the center, someone had painted symbols on the floor, circles within circles, marks that burned into the eyes if you looked too long. Mirrors hung on every wall, but each one was covered in different materials: cloth, foil, thick paint. One remained uncovered, across from the bed. It was cracked, like the one from the studio. And in its reflection, the room was different. Jimin was sitting on the bed. He was smiling. Jungkook stepped closer. "Jimin?" he whispered. Taehyung grabbed his arm. "Don't." It's not him. But the Jimin in the mirror moved. Not like a ghost. Not like a memory. Like he was alive. He raised a hand and pointed to the wall behind Jungkook. Slowly, Jungkook turned. There, carved into the wallpaper behind the peeling floral print, was a message. Written in blood. The mirror doesn't show you. It copies you. Every time you look, it learns. Every time you turn away, it becomes more. Then, as if summoned, the reflection began to shift. Jungkook's face appeared in the mirror. Then another version. And another. One of them was bleeding. One of them was screaming. One of them was smiling wide and slow. And that version looked at Jungkook and whispered, "You're ready now." The mirror cracked again. And this time, it cracked from the inside. The sound of cracking glass echoed through room 903 like a gunshot. Jungkook froze. Taehyung pulled him back, eyes wild with panic. "Step away from it," Taehyung whispered, breath trembling. "Now, Jungkook, now." But Jungkook couldn't move. He was staring into the mirror, his pulse a violent drumbeat in his ears. He saw himself, or what used to be himself, on the other side, now fractured across shards that moved independently. One version of him was crying, another grinning manically, and the last one, the one in the center, tilted its head with an eerie familiarity and placed its hand on the inside of the glass. It was mouthing something. No sound, just the shape of his lips. "You let me in." Taehyung grabbed Jungkook's arm and yanked him back hard. The mirror responded with a sharp crack, a long vertical fracture, splitting the entire glass like lightning down the middle. Jungkook blinked, stumbling away. It said, "I know what it said." Taehyung pulled him toward the door. "We're not staying. That thing's learning. Every second we breathe in this room, it becomes more like us." Jungkook looked back once. The reflection had stopped mimicking him. It was now acting independently, smiling, licking its lips, tilting its head like it was curious. Then it turned and walked out of frame, as though the mirror led to someplace deeper. A place that didn't reflect but contained. They slammed the door behind them and fled down the hallway, flashlights swinging wildly, boots echoing off peeling wallpaper and damp carpet. "Wait," Jungkook gasped. "We need to go back." "Are you out of your fucking mind?" Taehyung turned on him, shoving him against the wall. "You saw what I saw. That wasn't just some ghost. That was you. That was all the versions of you this thing has ever scraped from a mirror or screen. It's building something. And if we stay, if you stare into it any longer, it's going to replace you. Jungkook didn't push back. His voice was low, haunted. What if it already has? Taehyung faltered. Jungkook looked down at his hands. What if the one who ran out of that room wasn't me? What if I left myself in there? Taehyung grabbed him by the collar. Don't ever say that. I would know if it wasn't you. Jungkook stared at him. Would you? The question hung there like smoke. They reached the stairwell and began descending quickly. But on the 6th floor landing, the lights above flickered violently, then died. Complete blackness. Jungkook clicked his flashlight back on nothing. Taehyung's didn't work either. No, not now, Taehyung muttered, slapping the side of his torch. Then a voice floated from above them. Light. Gentle. Familiar. Cookie? Jungkook froze. It was Jimin. His voice. Soft. Like a lullaby. Don't, Taehyung hissed. Don't answer. It's not him. You know it's not him. But Jungkook turned toward the stairs. What if it is? It's not. But Jungkook was already moving. Taehyung chased after him, grabbing the back of his jacket. You want to die? You want to become one of them? Jungkook spun around, furious. He's the reason we're still alive. If Jimin hadn't sent that message, if he hadn't warned us, we'd be gone already. I can't leave him behind again. And what if that's what it wants? Taehyung shouted. What if it's using Jimin's voice to lead you back into the mirror? You really think he's still alive in there? Jungkook's silence said everything. Taehyung's voice broke. He's gone, Kook. You saw the footage. You heard the screams. The only thing left of him is the piece it's wearing like a skin. A cold wind passed between them, as if the building itself was inhaling. Then, from behind them, came the sound of bare feet slapping on tile. Fast, getting closer. They ran. 3 flights. 2. The 1st floor. The lobby. They burst through the broken front doors into the rain-drenched Tokyo street. And there, under the glow of a flickering street lamp, stood Yoongi, soaked, smiling, and normal. To normal? Yoongi? Jungkook called. He nodded. It's really me. No, Taehyung said. Say it. Jimin's last words. Yoongi blinked. He said, don't trust him, not even if he cries. Jungkook froze. That's right. Yoongi looked at them both. I'm sorry. I was trapped inside. It kept showing me versions of myself. I almost forgot which one I was. Jungkook stepped forward, hope flickering like a match in a hurricane. How did you get out? Yoongi smiled. I didn't. The streetlights blew out. The sound of breaking glass erupted from behind them as the hotel windows shattered one by one, as if releasing what had been kept inside. Jungkook turned and saw himself in every broken window. 100 versions, each moving differently, each wearing a different expression. Taehyung grabbed Jungkook's arm. Don't look at them. But it was too late. One version of Jungkook stepped out of the glass. Then another. Then another. Jungkook stumbled back, eyes wide. Taehyung, he whispered. Which one of me is me? Taehyung turned to him, breath shallow. I don't know anymore. And Yoongi, or the thing pretending to be him, laughed. It was not a sound made for human throats. The laughter spilled from Yoongi's mouth like oil, thick and sticky, coating the air with something that felt wrong. It wasn't just sound, it was vibration, a frequency so low it made Jungkook's ribs ache. It echoed in places that shouldn't echo inside his chest, behind his eyes, down the hollows of his memory. Don't listen to it, Taehyung hissed, grabbing Jungkook's wrist. Whatever's wearing him, it feeds on attention, on being believed. But Yoongi stepped forward, barefoot in the rain, the puddles not rippling under him, his head tilted unnaturally to the left, the skin of his neck stretching like wax too close to heat. You still think you're the original, he said softly. That's adorably. Jungkook's mouth dried. He tried to step back, but the wall of reflections behind him was still moving. Hundreds of mirrored Jungkooks stepping out of the shattered hotel windows, blinking as if waking up, each with a slightly different smile, posture, scar, bruise. They were all him. But none of them were him. Taehyung raised the knife he'd been carrying since Seoul, hands shaking. Pick the real one, he said to Jungkook without turning. You tell me, right now. Who are you? Jungkook opened his mouth but paused. There were answers. Of course there were. Childhood memories. debut stage. The first time he heard Jimin laugh. The way he cried after their last concert. But those weren't proof. They were data points. The very kind this thing. Error in message stream. Rain slammed into the pavement in sheets, turning the Tokyo street into a mirror of black water. Under the flickering street lamps, Jungkook stared at himself. No. Versions of himself emerging from the broken windows of the hotel like memories trying to crawl back into existence. They moved like puppets, each with his face, but their eyes were wrong. One was weeping blood. One was grinning too wide. One dragged its leg like it had been broken long ago. But all of them were walking straight toward him. Taehyung backed up slowly, grabbing Jungkook's wrist. "We're not fighting them. Not here. We run." "I don't know which one is me." Jungkook's voice was raw, his breath catching in his throat. Taehyung spun him around, gripping both sides of his face. "Then look at me. Right now." Jungkook's eyes were wild, full of storm and sorrow. Taehyung didn't blink. "You told me once that if we ever lost ourselves, we'd find each other in the dark. You remember that?" Jungkook nodded slowly. "That means you're still you. If they were you, they'd remember that too." Taehyung glanced over his shoulder. The copies were still coming, now crawling over cars, stepping through puddles like they didn't feel the world beneath them. "Let's go." They bolted into the rain, cutting through alleys and abandoned storefronts, never looking back. Behind them, the things that wore Jungkook's face didn't run, they followed, calmly, like they had all the time in the world. By the time they reached the train station, both of them were soaked to the bone and gasping for air. The underground was quiet, empty, too empty for a city like Tokyo. Jungkook collapsed onto a bench, hands in his soaked hair, body shaking. "What are we even doing, Tae? We're not stopping it, we're feeding it." Taehyung dropped beside him. "We're still alive. That counts for something." "It's not enough." Jungkook opened his phone, against every instinct, and found the screen blinking new notifications. Not from apps, from the camera. Photos had been taken. While the phone was off, he opened the gallery and stared. Photos of him, sleeping, standing in the hotel room, screaming into the mirror. Photos he never remembered happening. And then, the last one, a group shot, all 7 of them, BTS, together, smiling. But there was something off. Jimin's face was blurred out, not pixelated, not erased. It was like the camera couldn't remember what he looked like. Jungkook showed it to Taehyung in silence. Taehyung stared for a long time, then whispered, "It's deleting him." "What?" "It's deleting him from our minds. It started with the photo, then the memories, and soon," he looked up, horror dawning on his face. "What if we forget him entirely?" Jungkook suddenly stood. No, I won't let that happen. If this thing wants to rewrite us, it has to go through me first." Taehyung stood too. "We go back. To the hotel?" "No," Taehyung said. "To the mirror, the real one." Jungkook stared. "You mean?" Taehyung nodded slowly. "The one in the basement. Where it started. Room 903 was a gate, but it wasn't the origin. Jimin always said it lived under the glass. He meant literally. There's something below all of this." Jungkook's voice trembled. "Then we go down." They found the old maintenance elevator behind a boarded-up staff door. It groaned under their weight as it descended, deeper than any hotel blueprint should have allowed. The air grew colder, heavier, like it was pushing back. Lights above them flickered until they finally died, leaving them in darkness. When the doors creaked open, they were underground. The walls were lined with shattered mirror fragments, jagged like teeth. The hallway ahead was long, endless, lined with doors. Each door had a name. Jin, Hoseok, Yoongi, Namjoon, Taehyung, Jungkook. At the end, a final door. Jimin. They walked in silence, the crunch of broken glass underfoot the only sound. When they reached Jimin's door, Jungkook hesitated. "This is wrong." "Yeah," Taehyung said. "But it's also real." Jungkook opened it. Inside was a mirror floor to ceiling, perfectly intact. No frame, just a wall of reflection. And standing in front of it, Jimin. He turned slowly. Alive. But wrong. His skin was too pale, his eyes flat, empty, like he had been emptied out and filled with something else. He smiled. "You found me." Jungkook stepped forward, voice breaking. "Is it you?" Jimin tilted his head. "Does it matter?" Taehyung stepped beside Jungkook. "What are you?" Jimin, the thing wearing Jimin, sighed. "A mirror isn't a window. It's a door. Every time you looked into one, you fed me. Your faces, your secrets, your shame. I didn't take anything. You gave it." Jungkook's fists clenched. "Then why him?" He fought back, it said simply. And in doing so, he opened the door. Jungkook stepped closer. "Give him back." The creature's expression twitched. "What would you trade?" "Everything." Taehyung grabbed Jungkook's arm. "Don't. I mean it." Jungkook's voice was full now, burning with fury and sorrow. "Take whatever version of me you want. Just give Jimin back." The creature paused, then said softly, "That's the thing, Jungkook. You're already gone." Behind them, every mirror in the hallway cracked, and from each door, versions of their friends began to step out. All of them smiling, all of them wearing their names. And the thing inside Jimin's skin whispered, "Now the world will forget who came first." And the mirror began to open. The mirror split open not like glass, but like skin, peeling itself back in smooth, wet layers, revealing a black void behind it. It wasn't darkness. It was something worse. A lack of light, yes, but also a lack of meaning. Like whatever lay behind the reflection couldn't be translated into human thought without breaking something inside you. Jungkook staggered back, breath caught in his throat. He felt weightless. Not in body, but in memory. Something inside him was flickering, shifting. A feeling like the core of who he was had loosened, like a name written in water. Taehyung stood frozen beside him. His lips parted, but no sound came out. His eyes filled with tears, not from fear, but from grief. It wasn't Jimin anymore. He knew that. But seeing his face, his voice, however wrong, however hollow, it hurt. The creature had chosen that form for a reason, because it knew it would break them. The false Jimin stepped closer. Its face held the shape of a friend, but the soul of a trickster god. It smiled like it had never meant a smile in its life. "You still think this is about me?" it said, looking at Jungkook. "But it was always about you. About what you let in. You grieved me in silence. You stared into every screen hoping to find a sign. You whispered my name in the dark like a prayer. You don't understand how powerful that is, do you?" Jungkook's fists clenched. "You used him. I was him. For a while. He let me in when he was too tired to keep screaming. When no one listened. Not even you. That's not true. But it felt true to him, didn't it? And that's all I needed. A crack in the glass." Taehyung stepped forward now, rage blooming in his chest. "So that's it? You prey on grief? On guilt? You wear people like suits and walk into the world pretending you understand what it means to be?" The creature turned to him slowly. "We don't pretend. We reflect. We become what's shown to us. And you've all been so generous." Taehyung didn't flinch. "Then look at this." He pulled a blade from his jacket. Real. Rusted. Jungkook's the one from the Tokyo studio. And without hesitation, Taehyung drove it into his own arm. Jungkook shouted, grabbing him. "What the hell are you?" But Taehyung didn't scream. He didn't even blink. He held the wound up to the false Jimin. Blood trickled down his skin like melted wax. "You can mimic our voices, our faces, but you don't bleed." The creature stared. Its smile wavered, just slightly, and that was all Jungkook needed. He rushed forward, slamming into it with full force, tackling it into the open mirror. Both of them disappeared in an instant. The mirror didn't shatter. It sealed. Taehyung ran toward it, slamming his fists against the glass, screaming Jungkook's name over and over. But it didn't budge. It didn't crack. It was a perfect, smooth surface once again. Behind him, the doors began to open one by one. Jin, Namjoon, Hoseok, Yoongi. Their voices called out to him. Gentle, familiar, safe. But he didn't turn, because he knew they weren't real. None of this was. He fell to his knees in front of the mirror, chest heaving, eyes burning. Inside the mirror world, Jungkook opened his eyes. He was alone, but not really. The space around him bent and pulsed like it was breathing. It wasn't a room. It wasn't even a place. It was memory. It was everything that had ever been looked at, watched, recorded. He could feel the weight of millions of reflections brushing against his skin like static. Faces, smiles, screams, all stitched together into a living echo of humanity. And somewhere inside it, Jimin. He walked forward, deeper into the pulse of unlight. Jimin was waiting. Not the creature. Not the copy. Jimin. He looked tired. So tired. But his eyes, his real eyes, lifted when he saw Jungkook. "Why did you come?" he asked. Jungkook's throat tightened. "Because you're my brother. And I never said goodbye." Jimin's face twisted with pain. "You were never supposed to follow me in. You were supposed to forget. That was the deal I made." "What deal?" "I gave myself up, so the rest of you could live. So you could live." "No." Jungkook took his hand. "We live together, or we don't live at all." The mirror pulsed again. Harder. Reality shifted. The creature returned, now formless, voiceless, pure hunger. It roared not with sound but with feeling. Regret, envy, loneliness. It lunged for them. But Jungkook didn't flinch. He held Jimin tighter and whispered one word. "Remember." The mirror in the basement cracked. Taehyung watched as light poured through it, blinding, pure, violent. The doors behind him slammed shut, one by one. The versions vanished like smoke in sunlight. And then, the mirror exploded. Jungkook came through it first, falling onto the floor, gasping, alive. Jimin followed, whole, real, crying. Taehyung dropped to his knees beside them, his breath stolen by disbelief. "You brought him back." Jungkook didn't answer. He just clung to Jimin like he might vanish again. Jimin whispered, "Is it gone?" And Jungkook said quietly, "No." They all looked at the shards of the mirror on the floor. Inside them, faint reflections still moved, watching, waiting, and the smallest shard still held a smile. Jimin's breath fogged the air as he stared at the smallest mirror shard on the floor. It lay there innocently, almost pathetically, half covered in ash and blood. But within its fractured surface, a sliver of a smile curved ever so faintly, a twitch of muscle on a face that shouldn't exist anymore. A mouth that shouldn't be able to grin, but was doing it anyway. Taehyung moved first, stepping forward and raising his boot. "We end it, now." Jungkook reached out instinctively. "Wait." Taehyung's foot froze midair, trembling. "Don't tell me you're feeling sorry for it." Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He was staring at the shard, his jaw clenched. His chest was still heaving from the trauma of crawling through whatever space the mirror world had been. He didn't know what part of him was real anymore. Didn't know if what came back was him or just a convincing reconstruction of his fear and guilt and memories stitched together by something ancient and hungry. But he knew this. That shard, it wasn't gone. Not yet. And destroying it without understanding it would be a mistake. Maybe the last one. Jimin sat on the floor beside the shard, barely able to sit upright. His skin was pale, his body light, as though half of him had not returned from the other side. His voice came out quiet, raspy. "It's not one thing. Not just one monster. It's a hive, a system. And the reflections, the versions of us, they're memories. But also possibilities. It's learning, evolving." Taehyung's voice was sharp. "Then we destroy every single piece, burn them, shatter them, bury them." "No," Jimin said, eyes still on the shard. "If you break a mirror, you don't kill what it reflects. You just scatter it. It multiplies." Jungkook crouched next to him. "Then what do we do?" Jimin finally turned to him. "We contain it." Taehyung shook his head. "You sound like them now. You're both speaking in riddles." "Contain it where, Jimin?" "We don't have access to some underground facility or black site. We're just us. 3 of us. No one else would even believe this happened." Jimin nodded. "Exactly. No one believes. That's what keeps it alive. Secrecy, suppression. It doesn't want the world to see it. Because once something is known, once it's spoken, it becomes accountable. It becomes vulnerable." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "You want to go public? Tell the world that people are being replaced by mirror entities that smile too wide and record your dreams through your phone? You'll be locked up before you finish the sentence." Jungkook stood. Then we don't tell the world. We tell someone who already suspects. Jimin looked up at him, understanding dawning slowly. You mean her? The woman from the forum? Taehyung frowned. What woman? Jungkook reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. He handed it to Taehyung, who squinted at the scrawled username and email address. Thread author, don't. Look, 903. The one who used to clean the Tokyo hotel, Jungkook said. She left breadcrumbs, stories, warnings. She knew something, maybe even saw something, and she disappeared right before Jimin did. Jimin whispered. She's the one who started the mirror warning rumors. Jungkook nodded. She called the entity the Hollow, said it grows in silence, thrives in repetition, in obsession, like a virus made of attention. Taehyung folded the paper. So what's your plan? We find her, hope she's still alive, and what? Hand her a shard and say, here, take care of the demon in the glass? Jimin leaned back against the wall. If she's still alive, she knows how to handle it better than we do. And if she's not, we'll find out what she left behind. Jungkook looked back at the room, the remnants of the gate mirror still sparking faintly across the floor. The hallway that had once held false versions of everyone he loved was now still like a film reel, paused mid-frame. But something in his bones told him they were merely waiting, breathing behind the glass, watching, always watching. He turned to Taehyung. We have to go now. Before this place resets. Taehyung grabbed Jimin by the arm, helping him stand. What do you mean resets? Jungkook didn't answer, because he didn't want to say it out loud, didn't want to believe what he felt in his gut was true. But the hotel, it wasn't built to be a place. It was built to be a trap. And now that someone had escaped it twice, it would close again, change its layout, shift its mirrors, reset its reality like a predator licking its wounds. They exited through the service tunnel behind the mirror room and emerged into an alleyway that didn't match any map of Tokyo they'd ever seen. When they looked back, the door they had come through was gone, just a rusted wall. They didn't speak again until they reached the train station. Jimin leaned heavily against the seat, breathing shallow. Jungkook sat beside him, hands still trembling slightly. Taehyung stood by the platform, staring at the reflection in the windows of the train as it passed by, just to make sure the man staring back had his expression. The silence between them was heavy. Jimin finally broke it. I heard you calling me, he said softly to Jungkook. Even when I was inside, even when it tried to bury me in loops and false memories, I heard your voice. Jungkook blinked back the sting in his eyes. I never stopped, Jimin smiled faintly. That's what kept me human. Taehyung turned. What about Yoongi? Jimin looked down. There's a version of him still trapped, but I don't know if it's the version. That place doesn't let you hold on to timelines. You forget which memories are real, which voices are yours. Jungkook's voice cracked. We'll get him back. You don't know if you can, Jimin said. Doesn't matter. We still try. They rode in silence. As the train passed through tunnels, their reflections flickered on the windows. Jungkook didn't dare stare too long. Every time he caught the corner of his own eye, a tiny part of him wondered, was that a blink delayed by half a second? A twitch that shouldn't have been there? A smile he didn't mean? Taehyung noticed it too. The paranoia, the echoes. Is it over? He asked, not to anyone in particular. Jimin shook his head. It's never over. Not unless you forget what you saw, and forgetting is how it starts. Jungkook opened his phone one more time. The camera had stopped taking phantom photos, but the last one still sat there, a group picture of all of them. Jimin included this time, but the background, subtle, almost invisible, wasn't the Tokyo hotel. It was his apartment, his mirror, still uncovered. And in the reflection behind them was someone who wasn't in the photo, someone smiling, someone who looked just like him. And this time, it blinked first. The train screeched to a halt in the middle of a tunnel, the overhead lights flickering like a dying heartbeat. Jungkook's phone slipped from his hands and landed face up on the floor between his feet. The photo was still open, the one that had no business existing. He stared at the screen. His face. His real face. But not. In the reflection behind the group, the other Jungkook, dressed identically, standing at the same angle, was staring straight into the lens. Not at the photographer. Not at the group. At him. And then it blinked. Only once. But the eyes said everything. You see me now. Jungkook dropped to his knees, snatched the phone off the floor, and deleted the image in a single motion, not because he thought it would help, but because his hands needed to do something, anything, to feel like he still had control. Taehyung turned sharply, voice taut with panic. What was it? Jungkook didn't answer right away. He shoved the phone in his jacket and looked up at the ceiling of the train car. The lights had stabilized. For now, but the tension in the air remained, like something was still watching, still waiting for someone to make the next move. Jimin leaned forward, voice low and exhausted. Tell us. Jungkook glanced at both of them, and his voice came out smaller than he expected. It was me, in the background of the photo. Only I wasn't there when it was taken. Taehyung stepped closer. Are you sure it wasn't just a reflection? A shadow? Jungkook's hands tightened into fists. It blinked first. That stopped Taehyung cold. Jimin let out a shaky breath. Then it found a way out. No, Jungkook whispered. I think it never left. They rode the rest of the way in silence, emerging into a gray, early morning Tokyo. Quiet, cold, with just enough fog in the air to make the city look like it had secrets. At the cafe Jimin remembered from the forums, they sat in the back, away from windows and mirrors, sipping coffee that had gone cold in their hands. Jungkook scrolled through old archives on a burner laptop. He'd managed to recover parts of the forum thread. Look, 903 had posted years ago. There was one line they hadn't seen before, a comment. Just 4 words. What you see stays. No likes, no replies. The account had been deleted 2 days later. Taehyung looked over his shoulder. What does that mean? Jungkook didn't look away from the screen. It means the mirror doesn't just copy, it remembers. Jimin leaned in. That's why the versions don't disappear. That's why they act independently. They aren't just reflections. They're echoes, leftovers of attention. We look into the mirror and pour ourselves into it, and it holds us. Taehyung rubbed his eyes. Okay, fine. So what now? We track this woman down? The original cleaner from the hotel? You think she's alive? She has to be, Jungkook said. She knew too much. She vanished after warning people. That doesn't sound like someone careless. Jimin pulled out a slip of paper from his jacket. Before they took me, I'd already started tracing her. She went by the name Ray. Not her real name, but she used it across at least 6 horror forums. Every single post was redacted or deleted, except one. He passed the note to Taehyung. It was a location, a shrine, outside Tokyo, deep in the woods. Jungkook narrowed his eyes. Why a shrine? Jimin shrugged. Maybe it's where she's hiding, or maybe it's where this thing started. They went that night. No driver would take them close. They walked the final miles in silence, flashlights low, weapons clutched in sweaty palms. The forest was ancient, not dead, just quiet in the wrong way, like it had grown around something it refused to name. The shrine was small, made of old wood and stone, the kind that wasn't marked on maps anymore. Moss had overtaken the gate. Candles had long since melted down into wax corpses. But the inside was alive. Drawings lined the walls. Pages torn from journals. Faces warped. Symbols mirrored. Repetitions of eyes drawn over and over until the paper buckled. And in the corner, sitting perfectly still, was a woman, mid-40s. Hair long, graying, tied back messily. Skin pale. Clothes torn at the sleeves. Her eyes met Jungkook's the moment he stepped in. You brought it with you, she said calmly. No surprise, no anger, just certainty. Jungkook stopped. Ray? She nodded once. You're alive, he breathed. Barely, she replied. Because I ran. Because I never looked directly at it. Because I buried everything that remembered me. Taehyung stepped beside Jungkook. We need to stop it. You've seen it. You know more than we do. Ray turned her gaze to him. You can't stop something that lives in reflection. It doesn't need a name. It needs a shape. It needs people to look. And the moment they look, it becomes them. You don't destroy it. You starve it. Jimin took a step forward. There's a piece of it still here. One of the shards survived. It's awake. Ray went still. Then you have a choice. Contain it. Or forget it. Jungkook frowned. Forget? Ray nodded. You don't win by fighting. You win by not remembering. That's why it mimics. That's why it makes itself unforgettable. It thrives on the trauma. On the repetition. That's how it latches on. Jungkook's jaw clenched. Then why didn't it erase you? I erased myself. Ray whispered. No photos. No mirrors. No cameras. I live where no one looks for me. The moment I'm remembered, it finds me again. The silence that followed was unbearable. Then Jimin whispered, We have to go public. Taehyung turned to him sharply. What? Jimin nodded. We tell the world. We spread the right story. Not fear, not warnings, the truth. That it only has power because we keep it secret, because we forget and fall into the same trap again. Jungkook stared at him, realizing what he was suggesting. You're talking about sacrificing yourselves. Jimin looked away. I already did. Once. Ray stood slowly. If you tell the story, if people start to remember correctly, it will stop feeding. It will lose shape. But you have to control the narrative. Every word, every detail. Taehyung exhaled. You want us to weaponize truth. Jungkook looked down at the floor. One of the drawings caught his eye. It was him, his face, but the eyes were scratched out violently. And beneath it, one sentence was scribbled in red ink. If you see yourself twice, don't blink second. He looked up, and in the corner of the room, behind a wooden pillar, something moved. Silent, slow, a hand, a smile, his own face, watching, waiting, blinking. Taehyung saw it first. Just the edge of movement, the flick of a shadow where no shadow should be. He reached out instinctively and grabbed Jungkook's arm, yanking him back before Jungkook could turn fully toward the figure hiding behind the pillar. Don't look, Taehyung hissed, voice low and tight. Don't give it shape. But it was too late. Jungkook had already turned, already seen. And what he saw was himself. Not smiling this time, expressionless. Still, but the eyes were locked on his. Unblinking. Cold. As if waiting for something. Jungkook didn't move. Neither did the reflection. They stared at each other, breath suspended, like two magnets fighting to either collide or repel. Every inch of Jungkook's body screamed to look away, to break eye contact and run. But some part of him deeper, older, understood what was happening. A challenge had been issued. A test of identity. Who would blink first? Behind him, Ray's voice cracked the silence. You have to hold it. Hold its gaze. It's trying to overwrite you. Taehyung stepped closer. Don't break. Don't even flinch. Jimin was frozen too. He knew that stare. That awful silence. It had pulled him under once. Now it was doing the same to Jungkook. Jungkook's throat was dry, his eyes already starting to burn. The reflection wasn't just imitating him anymore, it was anticipating. The way its fingers twitched, the shift of its shoulders. It was learning from him in real time, predicting his micro-movements, narrowing the space between original and copy. Jungkook grit his teeth. How do I know it's not already me? Ray stepped to his side, never looking directly at the figure. Because you're asking the question. It never does. A tear rolled down Jungkook's cheek as his eye twitched involuntarily. He fought the urge to blink. The figure's eyes widened just slightly, catching the tremble. It leaned forward, almost imperceptibly, like it could feel him slipping. I can't, Jungkook croaked. Yes, you can, Jimin said sharply. Because I did, and so can you. The copy tilted its head now, slowly, mocking. It smiled, and blinked. First, Jungkook collapsed to his knees, eyes streaming, breath racked and shivering, but still his, still intact. He gasped, laughing and sobbing at the same time. Ray exhaled, like she hadn't taken a breath in hours. That's never happened before. Taehyung dropped beside him. You beat it. No, Jungkook wheezed. It let me. Jimin's eyes darkened. Why? Jungkook wiped his face. Because it wants me alive, Taehyung stared. That makes no sense. It does, Ray said grimly. It wants someone to carry it, like a virus. It can't go viral unless someone survives to spread the myth. Jimin backed toward the wall. It's letting us go so we become the message. Ray nodded. Exactly. Because the moment people start talking about it, the more versions of it are created. In imagination, in theory. Every time someone reads the story, or tells it to a friend, or wonders if it's real, it multiplies. Taehyung paced now, hands in his hair. Then what do? If we stay quiet, it wins. If we speak, it spreads. It's a lose. Lose. Ray crossed her arms. Not if we tell the truth. Not just the horror. Not the mirror demon crap. But the exact rules. How to resist. How to survive. How to not become the story. Jungkook stood shakily. So we don't write a warning. Jimin understood instantly. We write a manual. Ray smiled. Exactly. They sat through the night, scribbling notes by hand. Not digital. Not typed. Every word chosen with care. Every sentence vetted. Rule 1. If you see your reflection blink before you, look away. You're still safe. Rule 2. If it moves before you move, run. Don't engage. Rule 3. Never show fear to it. It can't mimic what it doesn't see. Rule 4. Never forget who you were before you looked. Rule 5. Never, ever look twice in the same mirror after sunset. By dawn, the sky began to shift. The forest around the shrine breathed differently, like a fever breaking. Ray handed the completed journal 15 pages, stitched together with twine to Jimin. This is yours now, she said. I'm disappearing again. Jungkook looked at her. Where will you go? Where no one remembers me, she said with a tired smile. It's the only way I stay out of the story. Jimin stepped forward. Thank you. She touched his face gently. You fought harder than anyone ever has. You deserve peace. Then she walked into the woods and did not look back. Later that week, the journal was mailed anonymously to multiple places. A paranormal researcher in Busan, a university psychologist in Kyoto, a documentary filmmaker in Berlin. Taehyung digitized a redacted version on a private, encrypted site under the name Hollow Truths. But they didn't sign their names. They left it authorless, faceless, just a set of rules. A guide, the kind that might be mistaken for urban legend or truth, depending on who you are when you read it. Back in Seoul, Jungkook returned home. He stood in front of the full-length mirror in his bedroom for the first time in weeks. It was covered in a black cloth. He reached out, pulled it down, and stared. His reflection stared back. He waited. 1 second. 2. 3. Then he blinked. His reflection blinked after him and smiled. But this time, Jungkook didn't flinch. He smiled too and whispered, I know the rules now. The reflection faded, and he was alone. For now, the city looked normal again. That was the most disturbing part. After everything after the mirror, the other Jungkooks, the shrine, Ray, it was as if Seoul had reset. People filled the sidewalks. Cafes buzzed with laughter. Screens on buildings lit up the night in garish neon, showing music videos, dramas, product ads, faces everywhere. Jungkook stood at a crosswalk in Gangnam, staring up at a 10-story LED ad playing an old Bangtan performance. His own face looped in slow motion, eyes closed, singing, unaware, untouched. And then, mid-note, his reflection on the screen twitched. Just slightly, his lips stopped syncing with the audio. He blinked, and the image corrected itself. He turned away and crossed the street, heart pounding. He hadn't told Taehyung or Jimin about that twitch. He hadn't told anyone, because he didn't want to admit what he was starting to suspect. That even now, after surviving the mirror, something was still following him. Inside the cafe near the dorms, Jimin was waiting with a black hoodie pulled low, sunglasses on, like old times. But his face was thinner, his eyes darker. He still didn't like being in public, still didn't trust every reflection he passed. Jungkook sat down without speaking. The waitress came and went. 2 Americanos. They sat in silence for a full minute before Jimin broke it. It's still with you. Jungkook didn't look up. Jimin's voice was flat, quiet, but not cold. I can feel it. The air around you. It's heavier. Jungkook took a sip of coffee. What if it never really leaves? It does, Jimin said. But not if you invite it back. I didn't. Jimin tilted his head. Didn't you? Jungkook set the cup down hard. I didn't ask to survive. I know. The silence returned. Then Jungkook said, sometimes I wake up in my bed and I don't remember getting there. Not in a spooky way. Just like I lost time. And sometimes when I pass mirrors, I don't look because I know it's just going to be me, but I'm scared I won't recognize who I see. Jimin's fingers tightened around his cup. It wants to make you forget. That's how it gets in. Not with fear, with erosion. Piece by piece. Jungkook leaned forward, voice lower. Do you remember the night we filmed Black Swan in the theater? You tripped during the second take but still pulled off the move? Jimin smiled faintly. Yeah, you tried to hide it from the director, but you still looked embarrassed, even though you nailed it. Jimin nodded. I think about that night more than I should, Jungkook admitted, because I think that's the last time I remember all of us being us. Jimin's smile faded. Do you think they'd believe us? Jungkook asked. If we told them. Jimin took off his sunglasses. No, and if they did, they'd be marked, just like us. Jungkook sighed and leaned back. I miss Yoongi. Me too. Do you think he's still alive? Jimin hesitated. Parts of him. Jungkook nodded slowly. Sometimes I hear his voice in my head, telling me not to fall for the silence, not to believe the easy answers. Jimin looked down. That sounds like him. A phone buzzed. Not theirs. Both turned. At the counter, someone was watching them. A young woman, early 20s, pale skin. Black bob haircut. She was pretending to scroll through her phone, but her eyes kept flicking up to their table. Jungkook nudged Jimin. I see her, Jimin whispered. The woman stood, adjusted her coat, and walked past them, slipping a folded note onto their table. Neither of them moved until she left the cafe. Jungkook unfolded the note. 2 words. They're listening. Beneath it, a time and location. 3:0 a.m. Han River Underpass. Jimin stared at it. It's starting again. Jungkook shook his head. No, it never stopped. They met Taehyung in the studio that night, under the guise of laying vocals. He arrived wearing a mask, hoodie pulled tight. He didn't speak until the doors were closed and the red light was off. Someone's following me, he said. Jungkook and Jimin exchanged a glance. Taehyung continued. It's not physical, not a stalker. It's harder to explain. It's like I'm being mirrored, in my dreams, in moments I forget. I start to do things I don't remember deciding. I laugh at things I don't find funny. And when I cry, I feel like I'm copying myself. Jimin nodded slowly. It's trying to reestablish connection. Taehyung turned to them. Then we need to kill it. You can't, Jimin said. You can only break the loop. What loop? Jungkook answered. The one where we pretend it's over, that we're safe, that we're healed. Taehyung leaned against the console. Then what? We never rest? Never trust? Never look again? Jimin stood. We fight it by being human. Fully human. Imperfect. Scared. Vulnerable, but aware. Taehyung sighed. That's exhausting. Jungkook smiled faintly. So is being alive. They didn't go home that night. They met at the river, just before 3:0 a.m. The woman was already there. She stood beneath the overpass, lit only by a flickering street lamp. She wasn't alone. A dozen people stood in a semicircle behind her, silent, holding cameras, not filming, just watching. She stepped forward. I read the journal, she said. I thought it was fiction. But then I saw something in the mirror, and I didn't blink. Jungkook studied her. Who are they? Others, she said, who've seen it, or touched it, or become part of it? Survivors? Witnesses? Jimin stepped closer. You formed a network? She nodded. We trade truths, share names, monitor reflections. It's the only thing that keeps it weak. Taehyung narrowed his eyes. You're building a resistance, she smiled. We're building a story that ends differently. The group bowed their heads. Jungkook looked around. In their eyes, he saw a dozen different horrors, a dozen different versions of what he himself had lived through. But more than that, he saw fire. Quiet, desperate fire. The kind that only burns in people who refuse to be erased. And in that moment, he understood. This wasn't a ghost story. It was a war. And the battleground was memory. Truth. Reflection. The woman handed him a photo. His face. But this time drawn in charcoal. Eyes wide. No mouth. And on the back, handwritten, "He only wins when you stop talking." Jungkook looked at Jimin. "We tell everything." Jimin nodded. "Even the parts that make us look insane. Especially those parts. Especially the ones we're afraid to say out loud. Because if we stay silent, the mirror speaks for us. And it never tells the truth." The next morning, Jungkook woke to someone humming in his apartment. Not singing. Humming. Low. Familiar. Do familiar. He sat up in bed, heart already pounding. He hadn't played music that morning. He hadn't opened the blinds. The air smelled off like dust and metal and wet glass. He grabbed the knife from beneath his pillow. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was routine. He followed the sound down the hallway, past the living room where nothing had moved since last night. His laptop was still closed. The black cloth was still covering the mirror. The TV off. The hum led him to the kitchen. Empty. But the faucet was dripping. He stepped closer and turned it tight. Silence. The humming stopped. Then, from behind him, a voice, his own, soft, calm. "You always look over your left shoulder first." He spun around, knife raised. Nothing. Just the hallway mirror, covered. He didn't move. Didn't blink. He backed away slowly, heart racing, breath sharp. He wasn't going to look. He'd learned. He learned. Until the humming returned, louder this time. Leaking from beneath the cloth-like sound could bend around cloth and concrete and logic itself. He stepped forward, hands shaking. Jimin's voice came back to him. "It doesn't want to scare you anymore. It wants to be you." Jungkook reached up and yanked the cloth down. There was his reflection. Still. Expressionless. He stared. Waited. Nothing happened. No flickers. No smiles. No blinking out of rhythm. He let out a slow breath. Almost laughed at himself. And then his reflection raised the knife first. He stepped back. It stayed still. He waited. It blinked second. This time, it grinned. He dropped the cloth back over the mirror and walked out of the apartment without saying a word. He met Jimin and Taehyung 2 hours later at a private studio they'd secured under fake names. No staff, no cameras, just a microphone, paper, and a single recorder plugged into an offline laptop. They were going to record it. All of it. Not a dramatization, not a cautionary tale. The truth. They called it, "The Mirror Doesn't Lie. You Do." Jimin sat at the mic first. His voice was low, raw. "My name is Park Jimin. I was gone for 23 days. I don't know where my body was, but I know where my mind went. It was like being inside a version of myself designed to trick everyone I loved, including me. And when I finally screamed loud enough to be heard, I wasn't screaming with my voice. I was screaming through silence, the kind that waits, that pretends." Jungkook followed.